Have you ever seen someone who looked invisible to the world until one act of kindness changed everything? What if I told you that a Hollywood legend stopped in the middle of a red carpet night to save a life no one cared about? Stick around till the end because what Tom Hanks did next will leave you speechless. And hey, before we begin, if you believe kindness can still change the world, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to Kindness Tales Live. The sun was setting over Los Angeles, painting the sky in shades of orange and violet. The streets near Hollywood Boulevard buzzed with tourists, cameras flashing and cars honking in a chaotic rhythm that only the city of dreams could produce. Among the glowing billboards and fancy suits sat a small figure on the cold concrete, a young girl, no older than 15, clutching a torn backpack to her chest. Her name was Lila. Lila's eyes were tired, her clothes dusty, her hair tangled from nights spent on the street. People walked by, pretending not to see her. Some tossed her a coin without even slowing down. Others crossed to the other side, avoiding her gaze. Her cardboard sign read, "Just hungry. Please don't ignore me." But the truth was deeper. Lila wasn't just hungry, she was hopeless. Her mother had passed away 2 years earlier, and her father, lost in grief, had turned to alcohol and eventually vanished. For months, Lila bounced between shelters, sometimes sleeping under bus stops, other times near diners that left food scraps behind. That evening, she sat near the red carpet entrance of a luxury hotel, unaware that a major charity gala was taking place. Paparazzi lined the streets, flashes bursting like fireworks as celebrities arrived in sleek cars. Lila watched, her heart heavy but curious. She had always loved movies, especially those starring Tom Hanks, the man who played heroes that made her believe good people still existed. As limousines rolled by, she whispered to herself, "If only someone like him would see me. Just once." Moments later, a black car stopped just a few feet away. Reporters started shouting, "Tom! Tom Hanks! Over here!" The crowd erupted with cheers as the actor stepped out, smiling humbly, waving at fans. He was dressed in a classic black tuxedo, his warmth lighting up the space around him. Lila stared in disbelief. Her heart pounded. It was him, her hero, the man who made her cry in Forrest Gump, laugh in Castaway, and believe in decency again. Something inside her pushed her forward. Gathering all her courage, she stood trembling and took a step toward him. "Mr. Hanks?" she called out softly. No one heard. Cameras kept flashing. She tried again, louder this time. "Mr. Hanks, please help me." Security guards instantly moved between her and the red carpet, their voices firm. "Step back, miss." Lila's hands shook as she clutched her backpack tighter. "Please, I'm not here for trouble. I just need help, please." Her voice cracked as tears welled up. The crowd began to murmur, some annoyed, others curious. Tom turned, confusion crossing his face. He saw the small girl standing just beyond the rope line, tears streaming down her cheeks. Most celebrities would have ignored it, but not him. He frowned, whispering to his wife, Rita, before stepping away from the reporters. Cameras turned toward the commotion. "Hey, what's going on here?" Tom asked gently, approaching the guards. One of them muttered something about a homeless kid causing a scene. Tom's expression changed. "She's not a scene," he said firmly. "She's a person." He walked right up to Lila, lowering himself to her level. "Hey, sweetheart," he said softly. "What's your name?" "Lila," she stammered. "I'm sorry, I didn't know where else to go." The crowd went silent. The flashing lights dimmed as the world seemed to pause. Tom looked at her for a long moment, his kind eyes full of concern. "You did the right thing by asking for help," he said. "Let's get you something to eat, okay?" And with that, Tom Hanks, one of the biggest stars in Hollywood, took off his jacket, placed it over Lila's shoulders, and led her away from the red carpet and into the hotel. What happened next would touch millions. Tom Hanks led Lila through the side entrance of the hotel, away from the flash of cameras and the noise of fame. His gentle hand on her shoulder made her feel something she hadn't felt in months: safety. The warmth of his jacket still lingered on her shoulders as they stepped inside the elegant ballroom, glowing with chandeliers and soft music. Waiters moved gracefully between tables, trays shimmering with silverware and fine dishes. But to Lila, it all felt like a dream she wasn't supposed to enter. She stopped at the doorway, her shoes worn and wet, afraid to step further. I don't belong here," she whispered. Tom turned to her, smiling kindly. "Tonight you belong exactly where you are," he said. Everyone deserves a seat at the table. He guided her to a quiet corner table, away from the curious stares beginning to form around them. Guests whispered, some recognizing her from the commotion outside. Cameras were discreetly raised, though Tom didn't care. His focus was only on the trembling girl beside him. A waiter approached cautiously. "Mr. Hanks, shall I bring your meal?" Tom nodded, but then gestured to Lila. "Actually, could we get 2 plates? And maybe some soup for my friend here." The waiter blinked, unsure, but Tom's calm authority left no room for refusal. Within minutes, a warm bowl of chicken soup and a plate of fresh bread appeared before Lila. The aroma made her stomach tighten painfully with hunger. "It's okay," Tom said softly, noticing her hesitation. "You can eat." The first spoonful burned her tongue slightly, but she didn't care. She ate as if the world might end before she finished. Between bites, tears rolled down her cheeks. "I'm sorry," she mumbled. "I just haven't had food like this in so long." Tom reached across the table, his voice gentle. "You don't have to apologize for being hungry, Lila. You're doing your best. That's what matters." For the first time in months, she smiled, a small, shy curve of hope. "Why are you helping me?" she asked quietly. Tom paused, thinking. "Because when I was younger," he said, "I had people who believed in me even when I had nothing. And sometimes all someone needs is a little reminder that they still matter." Lila's eyes glistened. "No one said that to me in a long time." The gala continued around them, music, laughter, speeches, but their small table felt like another world. Rita Hanks soon joined them, her eyes warm and understanding. She greeted Lila like an old friend, asking about her favorite movies, her dreams, what made her smile. Slowly, Lila opened up. She told them about her mother, a nurse who used to make up bedtime stories about magic and kindness. She told them about losing her home, about sleeping under bridges, about how invisible she'd begun to feel. Tom listened quietly, nodding, never interrupting. "You've been through so much," he said finally, "but you're still standing. That means you're strong, Lila, stronger than you know." Something inside her cracked. All the walls she'd built to survive began to crumble. She wiped her eyes and whispered, "I just want to be seen again." Tom reached out and took her hand. "Then from tonight onward, you're seen. You're not alone anymore." At that moment, a journalist approached, asking Tom for a comment about the girl from the street. But instead of brushing it off, Tom turned to the cameras and said something that would soon go viral worldwide. "Her name is Lila. She's not a story for sympathy. She's a reminder that every person you pass by has a story that matters. We can all do better starting now." The entire ballroom went silent. Then, one by one, guests began placing envelopes and checks on the table. Within minutes, thousands of dollars were pledged to local homeless shelters in Lila's name. She sat frozen, overwhelmed by the kindness surrounding her. "I don't understand. Why me?" she whispered. Tom smiled. "Because sometimes, Lila, kindness chooses you when you least expect it." As the night ended, Tom and Rita walked her outside. The cool night air wrapped around them as Tom said, "You don't have to go back to the streets tonight. You're coming with us." Tears fell freely from Lila's eyes as she nodded, unable to speak. For the first time in a long time, she felt like she was finally going home. The car ride to the Hanks home was quiet, the city lights flickering past the windows like forgotten stars. Lila sat in the back seat, her fingers gripping Tom's jacket that still rested on her shoulders. She couldn't believe what was happening. Just hours ago, she was invisible, another forgotten face on the street, and now she was sitting beside Tom and Rita Hanks, Hollywood's golden couple, who treated her not as a burden but as if she truly mattered. When they arrived, Lila's eyes widened. Their home wasn't the mansion she imagined. It was warm, welcoming, and filled with pictures of family and laughter. The faint scent of cookies drifted through the air. "You can stay in the guest room tonight," Rita said softly, leading her upstairs. The room glowed with soft lamplight, its bed neatly made with fresh linen. A small vase of flowers sat on the nightstand. Lila stood in the doorway, trembling. "This is too much," she whispered. Tom smiled gently. "No, sweetheart. It's just enough." As the door closed behind them, Lila sat on the edge of the bed. For the first time in years, she didn't have to keep one eye open while sleeping. She didn't have to worry about the cold or strangers or fear. That night she cried quietly, not from pain, but from relief. The next morning, sunlight streamed through the curtains. Lila awoke to the smell of pancakes and coffee. She hesitated at first, wondering if it was all just a dream, but then she heard laughter downstairs and Tom's familiar voice saying, "Don't burn them, Rita." When she entered the kitchen, Rita turned with a bright smile. "Good morning, sleepyhead. Hope you're hungry." Lila laughed shyly as Tom pulled out a chair for her. "I made these for our guest of honor," he said proudly, setting down a plate stacked with pancakes shaped like smiley faces. Lila couldn't help but grin. "I can't remember the last time someone cooked for me." "Well," Tom said, sipping his coffee, "get used to it. You're part of this home now." Her eyes widened. "Part of this home?" Tom nodded seriously. "We don't want this to be just one night of charity. We want to help you get back on your feet for real." The words hit her harder than she expected. "But why me?" she asked softly. "There are so many others out there." "Because you were brave enough to ask for help," Rita said gently. "That takes courage most people never show." Over the next few days, Lila began to heal, not just physically but emotionally. She took long showers, wore clean clothes Rita bought her, and even joined them for movie nights. They laughed through Toy Story and Forrest Gump, and she teased Tom every time he appeared on screen. "You really talk to a volleyball?" She giggled. Tom laughed. "Hey, that volleyball was a great listener." But between the laughter, there were quiet moments. Lila would sometimes stand by the window, staring at the streetlights, thinking about the others still out there. She remembered the faces she'd seen in the shelters, the mothers with children, the veterans forgotten by time. One evening, Tom found her sitting outside, lost in thought. "Penny for your thoughts?" he asked. She smiled faintly. "I was just thinking. I don't want to just be saved. I want to help others too." Tom nodded slowly. "That's the heart of true kindness, Lila, turning your pain into purpose." That night, they made a plan together. Tom called his charity foundation, and Lila shared her story. She wanted to help create a program for homeless teens, offering shelter, education, and hope. Tom promised he'd support her every step of the way. As they shook hands, Lila felt something she hadn't in a long time: a future. Later that week, a journalist visited the house to interview Tom about his red carpet rescue. But Tom redirected every question back to Lila. "She's the hero here," he said proudly. "She's proof that hope can rise from anywhere." Lila blushed, overwhelmed, but deep down she knew he was right. Her story wasn't about pity. It was about power. The power of asking for help and the kindness of someone who chose to see her when the world didn't. And that night, before going to sleep, she whispered to herself, "Tomorrow, I start again." Months passed, and Los Angeles began to see a side of Tom Hanks the world had never witnessed so closely before. Not the actor, but the man of quiet compassion. And beside him, always smiling, stood Lila, no longer the frightened girl from the sidewalk, but a young woman finding her purpose. The world hadn't forgotten the night Tom brought her from the streets into the gala. The video of him placing his jacket over her shoulders had gone viral, reaching millions. People from all over the world had written letters, donated to charities, and sent messages of love. But Lila didn't want to just be a symbol. She wanted to make real change. One morning, she stood before a group of volunteers in a renovated community center downtown. The building, once abandoned, was now freshly painted and full of life. A large sign above the entrance read, "The Lila Hope Foundation. Every story deserves a second chance." As Tom watched proudly from the back, Lila stepped onto the small stage, holding the microphone with trembling hands. "I used to sit just a few blocks from here," she began, her voice steady despite the emotion in it. "I thought my story was over. But someone saw me, someone reminded me that kindness still exists. And now I want to pass that kindness on." Applause filled the room. Cameras flashed, but Lila didn't flinch this time. She wasn't scared of being seen anymore. She was ready for the world to listen. The foundation's mission was simple but powerful: to provide food, shelter, and emotional support for homeless teens. Within weeks, they had hundreds of volunteers, donations from across the globe, and programs teaching life skills, everything from art to computer literacy. Tom used his influence to spread the word, but he made sure Lila's name always came first. "This is her dream," he told reporters. "I just gave it a little push." But behind every dream, there were struggles too. Late one night, after everyone had left, Lila sat alone in the empty hall, staring at the growing pile of paperwork and unpaid bills. The costs of keeping the foundation running were rising faster than the donations could cover. She rubbed her tired eyes and sighed. Tom found her sitting there, chin in her hands. "Hey," he said softly, placing a cup of hot chocolate in front of her. "You've been here all night." She looked up, forcing a smile. "I just don't want to let anyone down, Tom. What if I fail?" Tom pulled up a chair beside her. "You know what my mom used to tell me? Failure isn't falling down, it's refusing to get up again. You've already proven you can rise. That's what matters." Lila nodded slowly, tears glistening in her eyes. "I just want to make a difference like you did for me." He smiled warmly. "You already are, Lila. More than you know." The next morning, something incredible happened. A news crew arrived unexpectedly, announcing that an anonymous donor had just contributed $2 million to the Lila Hope Foundation. Lila was stunned, covering her mouth in disbelief. "Who would do something like this?" she asked. Tom simply smiled. Sometimes kindness circles back. As the foundation grew, so did Lila's confidence. She began speaking at schools, shelters, and community events, telling her story, not as a tragedy, but as a triumph. Kids who once lived in fear now found hope through her words. She told them, "If you can survive the night, you can reach the sunrise." Soon, media outlets across the country picked up her story. "From homeless to heroine," one headline read. Another said, "Tom Hanks and Lila's mission of kindness inspires the world." But Lila didn't care about fame. Her greatest joy came from seeing kids find a bed to sleep in, a meal to eat, and a reason to smile again. One evening, as the sun set over the city, Tom and Lila stood outside the foundation together. The golden light washed over the street where she had once begged for help. "Hard to believe this is where it all started," Tom said quietly. Lila smiled. "No, Tom. This is where it began again." He chuckled softly. "You know, you've changed more lives than some of my movies ever could." She laughed through her tears. "You gave me a reason to believe again. I just wanted to keep that going." And in that moment it was clear. What started as a single act of compassion had become a movement of hope that would never fade. A year had passed since that unforgettable night when Tom Hanks stopped on a red carpet and saw a girl no one else would. The Lila Hope Foundation had grown beyond anyone's expectations. What began as one act of kindness had turned into shelters across multiple cities, education programs, and hundreds of lives changed. But behind all the success, life still had a way of testing hearts that cared the most. One rainy evening, while driving home from a fundraiser, Tom's phone buzzed. It was a call from the foundation, urgent. A storm had damaged one of the shelters on Sunset Street, and dozens of kids were without a safe place to stay. Without hesitation, Tom and Lila rushed through the pouring rain. When they arrived, the sight broke Lila's heart. The roof had collapsed in part of the building, rainwater flooding the floor, children huddled together under blankets. Volunteers were doing their best, but the power was out, and the city's emergency crews were delayed. Tom immediately took charge, his calm voice steady in the chaos. "Let's move everyone to the community hall 2 blocks away," he said, handing out umbrellas and jackets. "Nobody stays behind." Lila moved from child to child, comforting them. One little boy, no older than 10, clung to her arm, shivering. "Miss Lila, are we going to be okay?" he asked. She knelt, brushing rain from his cheek. "Yes, sweetheart. You're safe now, I promise." As they led everyone through the flooded street, the wind howled and thunder cracked above. Cameras from nearby reporters caught the scene. Tom Hanks, soaking wet, helping carry a child in his arms, and Lila guiding the others through the storm. It was a sight that captured hearts across the world once again. When they finally reached the community hall, volunteers had set up blankets, food, and lanterns. Exhausted but relieved, Lila sat on the floor beside Tom. "It feels like no matter how far we go, the world keeps testing us," she said softly. Tom looked at her and smiled faintly. "That's how you know it's worth it. Hope isn't about everything being easy. It's about standing tall when it's hard. A few minutes later, a city official arrived, shaking their hands. Mr. Hanks, Miss Lila, we've got emergency funding on the way. The city wants to help rebuild the shelter. Your foundation's work has inspired everyone. Tears welled in Lila's eyes. Thank you. Thank you so much. But then came the moment that no one expected. A voice from the crowd spoke up. A man's voice, shaky but familiar. Lila. She turned, her breath catching in her chest. There, standing in the doorway, soaked and trembling, was her father. The man who had vanished years ago, broken by grief and guilt. Lila froze. Dad? He nodded slowly, tears streaming down his face. I saw you on the news. What you've done. I didn't think I deserved to see you again. But I couldn't stay away any longer. For a long moment, silence filled the room. Then, without a word, Lila ran to him, wrapping her arms around his neck. Both of them cried openly, years of pain washing away in the rain outside. Tom quietly turned away, giving them space, his eyes glistening with pride. Later that night, after everyone was safe and warm, Tom stood outside with Lila as dawn began to break through the clouds. Looks like the storm's finally over, he said softly. Lila nodded. In more ways than one. She looked at him, her heart full. You didn't just save my life, Tom. You gave me a reason to keep believing in people. He smiled, his voice humble as always. No, Lila, you saved yourself. I just got lucky enough to witness it. A golden glow spread across the wet streets as the sun rose over Los Angeles. The once cold sidewalk where Lila had once begged now lay just a few miles away, but it felt like another world. The world she had built was full of hope, love, and second chances. That morning, the headline on every major network read, "The Miracle on Sunset Street. Kindness rebuilds a city." And as Lila stood beside Tom, surrounded by the children she once vowed to help, she whispered to herself, Mom was right, kindness really can change everything.